Ever feel like someone's always watching you, but you can't quite prove it? That strange gut feeling might be onto something bigger. What if your peaceful home wasn't as private as you thought? Sometimes, the biggest red flags come wrapped in a neighbor's polite smile. Let's lift the curtain on what's really happening when coincidence keeps showing up at your front door. You know that oddly tense moment when you step outside, and bam, there they are again. Your neighbor, watering the same patch of grass, for the third time today. You pause. It's like something out of a movie scene, where the suburban calm hides a brewing storm. And no, this isn't just your imagination acting up. Sometimes, the walls really do have ears, and the hedges? Eyes. Neighbors can blur that fine line between a casual, hey, good morning, and a silent surveillance squad. One moment, they're waving from the porch. The next, you're tiptoeing through your own home like you're dodging security lasers. What should be your safe zone suddenly feels like a stage under constant watch. If you've ever caught yourself lowering your voice in your own kitchen, just in case someone's listening, congratulations. That's not paranoia. That's self-preservation. Your instincts may already be in defense mode, quietly signaling, something's off. In this video, I'll walk you through 5 unmistakable signs that your neighbor isn't just overly curious, they're actively monitoring you. These aren't charming quirks or harmless habits. They're glaring red flags that, if ignored, could steal your sense of peace one awkward encounter at a time. So stick around, because by the end of this video, you'll be equipped to spot the difference between neighborly and narc-like. And if you believe your privacy deserves more than just a lock on your front door, go ahead and smash that subscribe button, because we've got a lot more survival wisdom coming your way. Sign number 1. They seem to, coincidentally, appear every single time you leave the house. You grab your keys, step onto the porch, and there they are. Again. And again. And again. This isn't about those light-hearted, friendly run-ins. You know, like when you're both out checking the mail on a Saturday morning. This is something else. This is persistent. This is when a simple hello begins to feel like a shadow that never leaves your side. It's the kind of behavior that makes your skin crawl. Where casual becomes calculated. Where coincidence starts to feel like surveillance. Picture this. Now, let's move to the next sign, because the patterns only get creepier from here. Just a moment ago, we uncovered how a neighbor's constant, accidental appearances can quietly shift from innocent to intrusive. But for some, this behavior crosses a deeper, more unsettling line. Take David, for example, a man I once knew. He was a retired firefighter, steady and grounded, who found peace in simple habits. Every evening after dinner, like clockwork, David would take a gentle walk around the neighborhood. No frills. Just the quiet rhythm of footsteps on pavement and the cool evening air. At first, it seemed harmless when a neighbor from a few houses down just happened to be near his car every time David passed. A quick glance. A nod. Nothing more. But then things started to change. No matter when David stepped out, early dusk, late at night, even when the sky cracked open with rain, that same neighbor would appear. Not walking, not jogging, just there. Sometimes pretending to sweep a spotless driveway, other times fiddling in his garage or scrolling on his phone with no urgency or purpose. What once felt coincidental began to feel orchestrated. David began to sense something deeper, that his routine wasn't just being seen. It was being studied. Tracked. Anticipated. There's a term for this kind of unsettling awareness, hypervigilant observation. It's when someone monitors your actions so closely, so consistently, that they can predict your next move before you even make it. And that's where things turn dangerous. Because patterns don't build themselves. They're formed through calculated attention, repeated observation, and, often, an unhealthy obsession. A neighbor who watches you with such intensity isn't just being curious, they're weaving a narrative in which your life becomes part of their territory. Even ancient Stoic philosophers, long before CCTV and motion detectors, recognized this hidden form of threat. Marcus Aurelius reminded us that it's not the event itself that disturbs us, but our judgment of it. In other words, our internal awareness is our greatest line of defense. When that gut instinct whispers that something's not right, you must listen. But not with panic. With clarity. The Stoics didn't encourage fear. They encouraged strategic understanding. So if you ever find yourself in David's shoes, here's your first move: document everything. Keep a private, detailed log. Record the dates, times, what you observed, especially anything that felt out of place. Instinct is powerful, but evidence is undeniable. Leverage technology too. Install discrete cameras. Review the footage. Over time, patterns emerge, like someone consistently appearing near your home just minutes after you leave. It's not just helpful for peace of mind. It's crucial if the situation escalates into something more serious. And finally, one simple but powerful tactic: break the pattern. Change your walking times. Alter your routine. Don't give them a predictable map of your life. In the next part, we'll dive deeper into another red flag, and what to do when your space, both physical and emotional, begins to feel violated. Previously, we saw how changing your routine can reveal the truth: if someone's watching, they'll adjust with you. But what happens when that truth becomes too glaring to ignore? David reached a point where the evidence could no longer be brushed aside. But instead of reacting with anger or panic, he responded like a true Stoic: calm, deliberate, and in control. He didn't throw accusations or make a scene. He shifted his daily patterns silently, kept documenting every repeated encounter, and when the situation escalated, when his neighbor trespassed onto his lawn in the middle of the night, he didn't hesitate. He brought in local authorities, not out of fear, but out of strategic resolve. Because David understood something most people overlook: trusting your gut isn't paranoia, it's wisdom. The mind has a way of sensing threats before logic catches up. Ignoring those signals isn't strength. It's self-betrayal. True strength lies in acknowledging what you feel, protecting your space, and moving forward with quiet, grounded confidence. Whether it's your front porch or your state of mind, you deserve peace. You deserve protection. You deserve to feel safe in your own sanctuary. And that brings us to the second sign, one that's even more unsettling. Sign 2, their technology is focused on you. This type of surveillance doesn't come with the crunch of gravel or the creak of a fence. It doesn't announce itself with movement. It arrives silently, invisibly, through the air itself. In today's hyper-connected world, watching someone doesn't require binoculars or blinds that twitch. All it takes is a camera pointed the right way. A lens barely bigger than a marble. A hidden microphone. Even a hacked router. That's all it takes to turn your private moments into someone else's entertainment. So if you've started noticing subtle things, like your neighbor's security camera angled just right to capture your driveway, your living room window, or even your children playing in the yard, don't chalk it up to sloppy installation. It's not an accident. It's intentional. At first, the emotional toll is quiet. You might notice a vague unease, a restless night here, a flash of irritation there, a strange reluctance to open the curtains. But gradually, it sinks deeper. Anxiety sets in. It creeps into the corners of your mind, wraps itself around your comfort, and turns your home from a sanctuary into something else, a space that feels watched, penetrated, no longer yours. You start second-guessing yourself. Maybe you're imagining it. Maybe you're overreacting. But deep down, your instincts are trying to cut through that doubt. They're shouting what your logical mind is too polite to admit. Your space is being invaded. And with modern technology, invasion doesn't take effort. It just takes intent. Coming up next, we'll explore how to identify these quiet invasions, and how to take back your digital and physical boundaries, one step at a time. Previously, we uncovered the quiet damage that surveillance tech can cause, not just to your space, but to your peace of mind. But remember, not all invasions are high-tech. Some are disturbingly simple. Your neighbor doesn't need to be a tech genius to slowly invade your life. All it takes is a smartphone left recording on a windowsill, a rogue Wi-Fi signal that captures pieces of your conversation, or smart home devices flickering at odd hours without explanation. These aren't random glitches. These are signals, subtle fractures forming in the structure of your everyday comfort. And the longer you brush them off, the wider those cracks spread. The psychological weight of being quietly watched. It's heavy, and corrosive. Over time, it chips away at the parts of you that feel free and unfiltered. You stop humming to yourself while making coffee. You hesitate before stepping outside, unsure if someone is watching. You begin to second-guess your own emotions. Should I laugh out loud? Is it okay to cry here? You start shrinking, editing your life, not for social media, but for an invisible, unwanted audience. And then it hits you. You're no longer living, you're performing. The Stoics knew this kind of inner erosion well. A Stoic would tell you plainly, yes, your privacy may have been violated, but surrendering your peace? That part's on you. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The obstacle on the path becomes the path." In other words, it's not what happens to you that leads to your downfall, but how you choose to respond. Your neighbor's devices may lie beyond your direct control. But your mindset, your reaction, your ability to protect what matters, that's yours to command. Don't let fear drive you, let awareness guide you. Start with your surroundings. Walk the perimeter of your home with new eyes. Look higher than usual. Look deeper. These days, cameras can hide in almost anything, from porch lights and faux birdhouses to seemingly innocent tree branches. And those strange Wi-Fi networks that only seem to appear when you're home? Don't shrug them off. They could be more than a prank. Unexplained battery drains, smart devices turning on without a single voice command, these are not coincidences. They are early warning flares. So, defend yourself smartly. Use encrypted networks. Set up your own security cameras, ones that guard, not spy. Install firewalls. Treat your digital life like a city under siege, protected by layers, fortified with care. But the ultimate victory isn't just staying safe. It's refusing to let fear dictate your life. Set your boundaries, digitally, physically, mentally. Then live fully within those lines, unshaken, untouchable in spirit. Next, we'll uncover another unsettling sign. And explore how even the smallest behaviors can reveal someone who's watching more than you realize. We just explored how digital surveillance can turn your home into a silent battlefield. But what if the real invasion doesn't come from a lens or a signal, but from your neighbor's casual conversation? Real freedom isn't about eliminating every threat. It's about refusing to surrender your mind, your peace, to those threats. And that brings us to the third sign. One that's more personal, more invasive, and far easier to overlook. Sign 3, they know private details they shouldn't. Here's a chilling reality. Today, a person's lifestyle, habits, preferences, even private thoughts, can be reconstructed using less than 5 overheard conversations. Just 5. And in a world where information is power, a neighbor who's always conveniently within earshot isn't just friendly, they're collecting intel. At first, it feels like nothing. A casual remark about your sister's new job in Phoenix. But you never said that out loud. Not to a friend, not on the phone. Only within the 4 walls of your home. Then it gets stranger. They compliment your limited edition sneakers before you've even opened the package. Or they mention the precise time of your haircut last Tuesday, and even know you used your Visa to pay. That's not a memory. That's a pattern. The shift is subtle, but undeniable. A compliment about your lawn. Harmless. A comment about when you left for work on Thursday? That's not friendliness, that's surveillance. Behind the scenes, something deeper is unfolding. These neighbors often justify their behavior. In their minds, proximity equals permission. They tell themselves it's concern, curiosity, anything but what it really is, unauthorized access to your life. Bit by bit, they gather details, seemingly innocent, but incredibly telling. This is how manipulation begins, quietly, subtly, and without confrontation. It's control disguised as concern. And eventually, that control takes root. You find yourself altering how you live, how you speak, even how you think. You ask yourself, what else do they know? What else have they heard? That's when the erosion begins. You no longer feel at ease in your own home. You edit your words, hold back your laughter, measure your grief. You stop being fully you. From a Stoic perspective, the path forward is clear. You cannot control who your neighbors are, but you can absolutely control how you respond. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." The moment you reclaim that power, the grip they have on your peace begins to weaken. So, draw the line. Reinforce your boundaries, not just with fences and locks, but with clarity, strategy, and inner calm. Protect what's yours. Not just your space, but your spirit. Next, we'll explore how subtle signs can escalate, and how to recognize when your neighbor's behavior starts crossing into dangerous territory. Previously, we uncovered how neighbors who overstep informational boundaries can leave you feeling exposed within your own home. But what do you do when that unsettling feeling starts to take root? When suspicion demands clarity? If your privacy feels violated, don't rush to confront recklessly. Instead, take back control, not just of your space, but of what leaves it. One effective method. Test the waters. Plant a seed of fiction. Maybe mention a vacation you're not actually taking, say it casually near an open window, or within earshot in your backyard. Then wait. If your neighbor later brings it up in passing, as if it just came up naturally in conversation, you've got your answer. It's a crude test, but it works. Brutally well. At the same time, it's critical to start fortifying your environment. Be intentional. Avoid discussing private matters near open doors or windows. Use white noise machines against thin walls to obscure conversations. Online, be just as guarded. A seemingly innocent Instagram story, a quick tweet about your morning jog route, or a geotagged coffee stop, each detail can become a tool in the wrong hands. This isn't paranoia, it's wisdom. Building boundaries around your information is not about fear. It's about respect, for yourself, your life, and your peace. It's the same principle the Stoics lived by: protect what is truly yours. Not with rage, but with reason. Your mind. Your energy. Your private moments. These are sacred, and not up for public consumption. Because here's the truth, a neighbor who believes they have a right to the invisible corners of your life isn't just being nosy. They're doing something far more dangerous. They're erasing the line, the one that separates polite interaction from personal violation. And once that line has been crossed, you don't need panic. You need strategy. You need boundaries reinforced with calm, clear intent. A firm stance, not a dramatic reaction. So if you found this knowledge helpful, if you felt that creeping discomfort in your gut and want to be ready instead of regretful, hit that subscribe button now. Because preparation always beats denial. Sign 4, there's physical evidence around your property. This is where things move beyond gut feelings and digital hints. This is where you start seeing the proof. Where imagination gives way to something tangible, something you can point to, touch, and know, someone has been too close. It's no longer subtle. It's no longer emotional. It's physical. Take Richard, for instance, a quiet man living in an average suburban neighborhood. He had a tiny habit, barely even noticeable. His welcome mat at the front door. He always left it slightly tilted. A small, personal touch. His own signature of home. But one day, after returning from a weekend trip, Richard noticed something strange. The mat had been adjusted. Perfectly straight. Too perfect. Almost deliberate. He tried to dismiss it. Maybe the wind. Maybe a delivery driver. But the next morning, something else stood out. The potted plant near his door, one he always angled toward the sun, had been turned, facing outward toward the street. And that's just the beginning of what Richard would uncover. In the next section, we'll look closer at these eerie physical signs, and what they reveal about how far someone might already be inside your world. Previously, we saw how small but strange physical disturbances, like a tilted welcome mat or a shifted plant, can silently scream that someone's been far too close. But sometimes, these signs don't stop there. They deepen, quietly chipping away at your sense of security. A few days later, Richard noticed something else. His mailbox, normally kept firmly shut, was slightly ajar. Oddly enough, there hadn't been any mail delivered that day. No wind, no deliveries. Just a tiny shift. The kind of detail most people would overlook. But Richard knew better. These weren't random occurrences. Someone wasn't just strolling by his house, they were interacting with it. Testing boundaries. Observing from too close. That's what makes this fourth sign so emotionally jarring. When someone physically alters parts of your private space, it's not just a violation of property. It's a psychological intrusion. Your home is supposed to be sacred. A fortress of comfort, routine, and peace. But once a stranger's curiosity, or worse, their obsession, crosses into your physical reality, something fundamental breaks. That unshakable sense of safety begins to fracture. And it often starts small. A mail envelope that looks like it was opened and clumsily resealed. A package nudged out of its usual corner. A window slightly cracked that you know you closed. A blind tilted the wrong way. These aren't careless coincidences. They're signals, and the worst thing you can do is ignore them. Security experts often recommend simple, non-intrusive telltales. Place a small piece of clear tape across your doorframe. Or slide a thin slip of paper between the door and the frame before leaving. When you return, if it's been disturbed, you'll know, quietly and without confrontation. And if something feels off, document it. Immediately. Take clear, time-stamped photos. Keep a private log. Write down times, feelings, patterns, even if they seem minor. You're not being paranoid, you're building a timeline. You're creating proof, in case things escalate. Because the emotional toll of these moments is real. When your space has been breached, it doesn't just affect your locks, it seeps into your trust. Not just in that one neighbor, but in the entire community around you. Suddenly, every creak in the hallway or item slightly out of place makes your heart skip a beat. And once trust cracks, it rarely heals clean. But from a Stoic perspective, there's something powerful to hold on to. While we can't control every act of intrusion, we can control how we process it. As Epictetus wisely said, it is not things themselves that disturb us, but our opinions about them. So what can we do? Recognize the violation. But respond not with panic, but with purpose. Strengthen your defenses. Record the facts. Fortify your inner calm. That is how you begin to reclaim your autonomy, quietly, powerfully, and on your own terms. Up next, we'll uncover a final sign, one that takes surveillance from the background and pushes it directly into your life. In the last section, we saw how physical disturbances to your property can be deeply unsettling, but what happens when the signs stop being subtle, and someone starts inserting themselves directly into your life? Physical evidence is never just a coincidence. It's a flashing red warning light. A loud siren telling you that the line between casual curiosity and dangerous obsession has already been crossed. At this point, it's no longer about suspicion. It's about trusting your instincts, reclaiming your space, and above all, protecting the fragile sanctuary of your peace of mind. Sign 5, their behavior escalates into obsession. This is the final sign, and the most dangerous one. It's when your neighbor's interest shifts from passive to invasive, and then from invasive to obsessive. And once it hits this level, the stakes rise. Studies show that in more than 70% of stalking cases, the victim knew the person stalking them. Most of the time, they initially dismissed the warning signs, rationalizing them as mere concern, as social awkwardness, or as harmless interest. But these patterns almost never erupt suddenly. They seep in, quietly, slowly, normalizing themselves inch by inch, until something that once felt slightly off turns into something undeniably threatening. Pause for a moment and think, have you ever had a neighbor whose presence lingered longer than it should have during small talk? Have you ever noticed them referencing things you never explicitly shared, details about your routine, work, or plans? How many times did you tell yourself it was probably nothing, just to avoid appearing rude, paranoid, or overly sensitive? We all do it. We override the very instincts built to protect us. We choose politeness over self-preservation. But those instincts aren't social mistakes, they are biological alarms designed to keep us alive. Let me share a real story. Karen lived in a peaceful suburban cul-de-sac. For months, she didn't think twice about the friendly neighbor who always waved as she left for work. A little too enthusiastically, maybe, but nothing alarming. Then, over time, he began commenting on things she never recalled mentioning. He'd ask about her job and reference tiny personal details that she was sure she hadn't shared. One evening, she made a private phone call inside her home, doors closed, curtains drawn, mentioning a short weekend getaway. The next morning, she found a handwritten note tucked under her doormat, "Have a great trip." No one else knew about the trip. The timing was too perfect. Too targeted. It jolted her, but she brushed it off, again convincing herself it was coincidence. It wasn't. Weeks later, the same neighbor was found in her backyard while she was away, claiming he was checking on the house. That was the breaking point. Karen's story isn't a rare one. In fact, it's almost textbook. These violations rarely start with fences being crossed. They start with small, seemingly well-meaning gestures. And before you know it, they spiral. The psychology behind this shift is disturbing. What once seemed like neighborly interest transforms into fixation. You stop being a person in their eyes. You become an object, something to monitor, to track, even to insert themselves into, uninvited and without permission. And when a neighbor positions themselves as your unasked protector, your confidant, while slowly isolating you from the broader community, that's not kindness. Coming up next, we'll break down how to recognize when protective behavior turns possessive, and how to safeguard your boundaries before they vanish completely. In the last section, we witnessed how obsession often arrives dressed in politeness, quiet, calculated, and deeply invasive. Now, the question becomes, how do you respond? Not with fear, but with clarity, courage, and action. Obsession isn't always loud. In fact, the most dangerous kind is quiet, strategic. It's manipulation by design, calculated to wear down your independence and increase your vulnerability. When a neighbor begins this kind of psychological entanglement, their goal is simple: control through dependence. From a Stoic point of view, your reaction must be swift, and anchored in reason. As Marcus Aurelius taught, external threats don't define who we are. Our response does. That's why documentation becomes your first shield. Record everything. Dates. Times. Conversations. Even the smallest disturbances or moments that feel off. You're not just creating a record. You're building a timeline, not for emotional validation, but for protection. If escalation continues, know that there are legal tools ready to stand between you and further harm: restraining orders, cease and desist letters, anti-stalking laws. And don't hesitate to involve law enforcement early. Their purpose is to act before things turn irreversible. Equally important: connection. When someone is trying to isolate you, your support system becomes your greatest weapon. Reach out to friends. Confide in family. Don't retreat inward. Predators thrive on silence and separation. Refuse to give them either. This isn't about confrontation. It's about preservation of your safety, your mental clarity, and your undeniable right to exist without fear. Because obsession rarely kicks in the door. It slips in through cracks, hidden behind friendly smiles, neighborly concern, and false coincidences. That's why recognizing the shift, and acting on it, is so crucial. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the willingness to act even while fear is present. And your instincts? They're not primitive flaws, they're ancient survival tools. Evolution didn't sharpen them for politeness. It honed them for protection. So if you sense that something's not right, don't wait for proof to come knocking. Act. And if you've made it this far, congratulations. You're already part of the rare 1% who can see the subtle difference between a well-meaning neighbor and a full-time amateur spy. Now, you know the signs. You've seen the traps. And more importantly, you know how to guard your sanctuary before someone else turns it into their personal reality show. Remember, this awareness? It isn't about paranoia. It's about locking your doors long before the wolf even thinks about knocking. Because you deserve to live with your curtains open, your laughter unfiltered, and your mind at peace, not constantly second-guessing a sound by the fence or a shadow on the sidewalk. So trust your instincts. Guard your space. And if this video opened your eyes, don't stop here. Hit that subscribe button and join a community that chooses preparedness over paranoia, and peace over performance. And hey, the next video the algorithm selected for you? It's not a coincidence. It's your next layer of armor. Click it now. Your future self, and your future peace of mind, will thank you.